with Travis Hunter and Will Johnson, the consensus CB1 and CB2 for the 2025 NFL draft class, not working out at the scouting combine, Texas's Jahdae Barron has a big chance to shine under the bright lights. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson. I'm an offensive draft analyst over with Bleacher Report. And guys, thank you so much for being our everydayers and tapping in with us this morning. Happy Friday. We got a fun show breaking down and previewing the combine action for Friday night. Guys, cornerbacks to watch. If your team needs a corner, this is the podcast for you. Safeties to watch, and then tight ends to watch. We're going to close it out with that. But before we can get into the action, guys, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Cornerbacks to watch, right? We know that the wide receivers are the highly paid. They're the darlings of this class, of the NFL, and you need guys that can cover them. And again, with Travis Hunter and with Will Johnson, the consensus top two guys, you got Shavon Revel out of ECU. You have Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Those guys coming off of injuries, the hip injury for Benjamin Morrison, the ACL for Shavon Revel. Who needs to step into the spotlight and pound the chest and say, I am a first-round pick? That is Jahdae Barron out of Texas. This is a young man that I've been high on all season, and he gives you that outstanding versatility because it's at 5'11", listed at 200 pounds and everything like that. Guys, when you watch him, you see a high instincts, high-level thinker, and a high football IQ player. And I think for him, testing well, right? Hitting in the 4.4s, jumping well, the three cone, the short shuttle, doing all those things well only helps him in this draft class. Because again, there's going to be questions of which team's going to pull the trigger on one of the injured corners, whether it be Shavon Revel or Benjamin Morrison. Who's going to be brave enough to try and sell to their fan base, hey, we just took a corner round one who's not really healthy at the moment, who's coming off of an injury, right? He will be healthy, but again, especially with the Benjamin Morrison and the hip, because we're seeing the hip kind of pop back up for Tua, right? So nonetheless, I feel like that is going to be a hard sell because at the end of the day, yes, teams draft to make their teams better and to improve their roster, but a lot of these GMs also draft to please who's buying the tickets to sit their butts in the seats. So when you don't have those guys, or if you don't feel comfortable, Jahdae Barron, man, like this season, he was outstanding. Less than 300 yards allowed in coverage. I believe he had 5 interceptions, 0 touchdowns allowed, 9 pass breakups, guys. And prior to this season, he was a fifth-year senior. This guy has played all over the defensive secondary. Past 2 years, 2023, 2022, over 380 snaps in the slot. Barely played outside. He also played in the box. He played safety. All of that, right? That kind of nickel hybrid defender. Well, in 2024, he played predominantly on the outside. Almost 700 snaps at outside corner. Only 122 snaps at the nickel spot. So that lets you know this young man can play on the outside. He can press bail. He can mirror and match guys. He's got good footwork. Again, the instincts, the vision, all those things are there. I think this is the guy. If we fast forward through the CB drills and the workouts and say who was a money maker, who made themselves some money, I think it's going to be Texas star defensive back Jahdae Barron. But you want to talk about some other corners. Ohio State's Denzel Burke, guys. A young man that came into the season and he was playing good ball, right? And up until I think it was the Oregon game. And then things kind of fell through for him. And it took him a little bit. He bounced back and he got back on track, but he never felt like his name buzzed again after that Oregon game. Not positively, right? People just remember that Oregon game. Remember the Evan Stewart and the Tez Johnson giving him everything he can handle, but he couldn't handle any of it, right? That was the narrative. but he ended up playing good ball after that game. That game, yes, he struggled. He got lit up over 160 yards, and I think 2 touchdowns he allowed. 100% completion percentage when targeting him in that game. After that, he didn't have a game where he allowed over 36 yards after that. So again, only 2 touchdowns he allowed was in that game. So after that game, he pitched a shutout in terms of keeping guys out of the end zone, but he also had 2 picks on the season, a couple pass breakups. He needs to come out here and showcase what he can do. Denzel Burke is a talented corner. He is a talented dude. And if you turn on the tape of any point during his Ohio State career, you saw the flashes. He's listed at 6'1", 190 pounds, 195 pounds, somewhere in there. Yes, he's a talented guy. He's showcased the ability to play press man. He showcased the ability to play off coverage and play zone. He showcased the athleticism that you want to see. Now he needs to go out here and run well. He needs to change direction well. He needs to showcase that not only that, but especially when you think about doing the back pedal drill, the hip swivel drill, things of that nature, and then they have to turn and run to the spot and then high point. How can you turn and find the ball? And I think that's going to help him be able to take the ball away and create turnovers at the next level, man. So yes, Denzel Burke needs to reclaim his name in this class, man. When you think about other corners, Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson, the 2 Kansas corners. Kobe Bryant is a dog. I'm telling you, don't look at the thin, slender frame from him. He will tackle. He will hit you in the mouth. He will be physical with you and grabby and handsy at the line of scrimmage in the contact window. This is a guy that you absolutely say to yourself, listen, I need somebody that can change the culture of my secondary. If you feel like he got too many pretty boys, yes, Kobe Bryant is going to be able to step into that room and bring some dog, and not just bring some dog. He's going to bring the dog and the bite to the fight. And I think this is a guy you want to add to your room. Melo Dotson, good vision, plays off coverage well, had a masterful game against Iowa State when he faced Jaden Higgins. I think he had 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick 6. I know he had a pick 6 in that game, if I remember correctly. Good ball skills, good vision. He reads the action in front of him. I think he's a good off-coverage zone corner where he can get to his landmarks and then play everything that's happening underneath him and just trigger downhill to the ball. He's a guy that's going to probably bait some quarterbacks into some of those throws. You're talking about smash concept. He's the flat defender. He's playing half-man technique between the corner route from the slot and then the quick hitch from the outside receiver. And then you think you have the hitch because he's kind of drifting off back towards the corner, and then he triggers downhill and makes a play, man. I just think this is a guy you absolutely want to add to your team, and I think he can be a nice addition. Talking about guys that need to shine under the spotlight. Man, I really like this kid, Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky. Smooth, athletic. I'll never forget studying Quinn Ewers and Isaiah Bond. And I think it was Isaiah Bond against Kentucky. Isaiah Bond had a post route. He hit him with a nice little jab step, head fake at the top of the route, and just left him. Boom, out the gate. But he never panicked. And I love to see how corners handle playing out of phase, because that's a different ball game when you're not hip to hip, you're not step for step, lockstep, stride for stride with a guy. When he gets past you and he stacks you, how do you play out of phase to get back in phase? And when I look at Maxwell Harrison on that play, guys, he didn't panic. He trusted his speed. He caught up to the ball. Granted, it was a bad throw from Quinn Ewers, but nonetheless, you reward yourself, right, by doing what you're supposed to do. You can only handle what you can handle, man. And he got back in phase, and he made a play on the ball. Look for the ball, swiped at it, swatted the ball away, and created a pass breakup. I'm telling you now, yes, Maxwell Harrison is a name that you need to know. Mac McWilliams from UCF had a strong week down in Mobile. This young man was all over the receivers, bigger receivers, smaller receivers. It didn't matter. Slot, outside, X and Z, he covered them all the same. This young man will press you. He has good footwork. He is feisty. This is a guy, I'm interested to see what he runs, but that's a guy 100% you need to keep your eye on. And I think we've talked about this guy before, but Quincy Riley, man, I love his game. He had an outstanding week down in Mobile as well. Talked about Noel Williams, one of my guys, one of Dame's dudes out of Cal. And I'll close. Azariah Thomas, I think this is a guy. Jahdae Barron is one guy I think that can cement himself and stamp himself as a first rounder with the measurements and the measurables is going to be in Azariah Thomas's favor. If he runs fast, if he moves well, all those type of things, you can absolutely say, look at the Green Bay Packers, pick 22, different things like that. This is a guy that's going to be a first-round pick because he has all the makings to do so. But, guys, coming up next, we're going to talk about those safeties, those guys that some of them sit on top of the defense, some of them work down into the box, some of them could do everything. We're going to talk about those guys coming up next. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on said action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my Detroit Pistons, who are hot right now, for a late-game rally, or picking our star player, Cade Cunningham, to hit a late clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 back in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Safeties to watch at the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine when these guys take the field today. I'm looking at Nick Emmanwori. We talked about him a couple episodes ago, but man, let me tell you something, guys. He said, I'm going to run 4.4s into the 4.3s, and I'm not going to sit here and doubt this guy. He is athletic. He is every bit of that athleticism, and that's what's always been so intriguing about a guy that's listed at 6'3", 220 plus pounds, is the movement skills, is the straight line speed, is the ability to work downhill, but in a hurry. That burst, that explosiveness, that trigger downhill, he can do all of those things. You talking about on the season this year, what he had over 80 tackles this season, 4 interceptions, 3 pass breakups, 0 touchdowns allowed. He only allowed 200 yards in coverage when he was the primary coverage defender. Listen, man, I look at when I see Nick Emmanwori, I'm gonna tell you a name that comes to mind. For those who remember those, my everydayers, not just but the everydayers are the true draft fans. Those guys that are hardcore, the diehards. Listen, for my diehard draft fans, remember Obi Melifonwu. They called him the tight end eraser. I'm pretty sure his measurements and measurables are very similar to Nick Emmanwori's. Body type, strong, long-limbed, muscular build. They felt like, man, for teams, because teams know, defensive coaches know, the biggest mismatch in the NFL is not Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Well, yes, those guys are big mismatches. But when you have a Brock Bowers, when you have a prime Travis Kelce, a prime Rob Gronkowski and Shannon Sharp and Tony Gonzalez, when you have those tight ends that can literally beat anyone on the field, your corner, your nickel, your safety, or your linebacker. Yes, those guys are matchup problems, typically because they're usually 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", 240 to 260 pounds. You need somebody that has the physical ability and frame to handle that type of assignment. Nick Emmanwori, similar to Obi Melifonwu, has that. And I think with Nick Emmanwori, I think this is a guy you have to watch. If he goes out there and tests the way he's talking, the way I believe from what I saw on film that he can test, oh yeah, go ahead and book it. This guy's going to make it a conversation with Malachi Starks. Truthfully, some people are going to have to have that conversation within themselves because, again, he's going to be a really good +1 in the run game. He's going to have a bigger frame, more physical, probably a better overall athlete. Hey, I'm not saying where I'm landing one way or the other. All I'm saying is this is a possibility to get for it to happen and get done. Now, you're going to talk about other guys to pay attention to, especially just overall in this safety class. Malachi Moore from Alabama, a guy that has an underrated skill set as a coverage defender. And I think most people right now don't really know much about him, but he's pretty solid athlete, instinctive. He's passionate. He loves the game. He does not like winning. He does not like winning. I mean, he doesn't like losing. I'm sorry. He loves winning. He doesn't like losing. And because of that, you do want a guy that is going to bring that type of mentality to your defense. R.J. Mickens out of Clemson, young man that I've seen play his entire career. Good player. He had a good week down at the Shrine and everything. This is a player you definitely want to keep your eyes on, guys, because again, that strong safety type of build and game, yeah, he brings that to the table for you. Now, another guy who used to be at Clemson, who told me all about R.J. Mickens last summer in 2020, not last summer, it was the summer before, 2023. My guy, Andrew McCooper, over with Texas, right? The heavy hitter. Like this guy is a football junkie. He is a guy that's going to study. He's going to know the opposite quarterback. He wants to know what they do well and where they struggle. And I think you turn the Georgia tape, man. I think both games, honestly, I think he came away with interceptions in both matchups against Georgia. Yes, listen, I'm just saying, guys, just keep your eyes peeled on how he performs. Right? I don't expect him to run in the 4.4s. If he does, hey, listen, second round, we're talking here. But this is a guy that you want, and he brings that leadership and everything to your defense, but also he's not afraid to hit people. I think it was against Ohio State, right? Him and John back and forth, talking trash back and forth with Quinshon Judkins, one of the more physical running backs in this class. It was like that's the type of mentality Andrew McCooper is going to bring to your defense, guys. But another safety over at Virginia, Jonas Sanker, saw him down in Mobile. And I didn't know much about him prior to, because I didn't get a chance to watch him or study him ahead of time. But this he's got game, right? 6 foot, 200 plus pounds. The guy that covered tight ends like very well down in Mobile. 1-on-1, he was covering those big body tight ends, those pass catching tight ends. He was covering guys well. He looks the part to be that. Even if he's not a true starter, he could be that third safety, right? And I think that's becoming that trend nowadays, especially with so much nickel as base, when you're lightening your box because you want to play a too high shell coverage, you want to take away the deep passing plays, which now is opening up teams to say, you know what, yeah, we could dunk it down, and get 3, 4, 5 yards every now and then, and try to use the quick passing game. The West Coast offense, basically, quick passing game is extension of the run game. But why not just run it? Like, if the front sevens are smaller and they lighter in the box, and you got linebackers who aren't even 250 anymore, they're light in the pants and need to put a little sand in the pants, why not run the ball and be physical and be violent? Yes, but when you can bring a safety that can play as that strong safety, take your strong, who's that nickel safety hybrid, and you put him down, or vice versa. You could bring Jonas Sanker off the bench as your third safety. He gets into the nickel in that overhang spot, and now he's a +1 off the edge in the run game. And you need to have guys that can absolutely help your rushing attack, help you out with things of that nature. I'm just telling you guys, hey, don't shoot the messenger. Defenses need to get a little bit more physical, need to add a little bit more size and everything else, man. But another guy that I really like too, that can kind of fit that similar mold, is out of Maryland, Dante Trader Jr. I think this is a guy, I think he has an opportunity, if he tests well out here this evening, if he tests well at 5'11", 200 pounds, he could lock himself in as a top 100 player. Like he absolutely could, guys. For Maryland, he had only one touchdown given up all season. He had 1 interception, 4 pass breakups. He plays all over that defense. He's got over 280 snaps as a box defender, 209, almost 210 snaps as a free safety, and about 72 snaps as a nickel. Versatility is king when you talk about safeties nowadays. That's the new prototype. The Ed Reeves of the world. Honestly, those guys are no longer as prevalent because of the fact that they're just not real. Like, those guys are rare commodities that you have the instincts, the ball skills, the range, athleticism, all of that to play as a playmaker in the deep end and right the wrongs of your secondary. Not many guys can do that, man. So that's why teams for a while did they were happy when they saw Malik Hooker. And now with Malachi Starks, because he brings a similar type of game. But again, there's only one Ed Reed. But what we're seeing now is the prototype at safety is starting to look a little bit more like Troy Polamalu, right? Roamers, guys that can roam the line of scrimmage, roam the middle of the field, do different things, blitz, attack, tackle, all of it, run game, passing game. Just be versatile. And that's what we're seeing now, guys. But coming up next, man, we talked about the corners. We talked about the safeties. We got to get into the tight ends. 3 tight ends are not testing today, right? Colston Loveland, because he's got the shoulder injury. Tyler Warren said he's just not doing it. He's healthy, but he's not doing it. And then Elijah Arroyo, I think, is also kind of nursing a lower body injury. So he's going to wait to his pro day as well. So that puts some onus on Harold Fanning Jr., Jake Brenningstool, and the rest of this tight end class. We're going to talk about that coming up next. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every dayers, guys. Let's close this thing out with the tight ends, those athletic, big body mismatch creating pass catchers, right? We could have started the show with these guys, but hey, why not let you stick around for the money, huh? Let's talk about it. Jake Brenningstool. This is a guy out of Clemson, 6'5", 235, 240. He might have read my report over at Bleacher Report, because at the podium, they asked him who's his comp. He said, I've seen the name Mike Gesicki thrown around. I'm pretty sure that's the comp I have for him over at Bleacher Report. Shout out to Jake Brenningstool. I think that the run game stuff is going to be big for him. So you want to see the technique whenever they get to that for him and everything on today and whatnot. But I think where he's going to make his money is as a big body receiver and pass catcher. And Jake Brenningstool, I want to see what he runs in the 40. Because when you're 6'5", 240 pounds, somewhere in there, hovering there, and if you can hit 4.6 flat or less, you're cooking. And you're helping your stock. And it gives those offensive coordinators and GMs that see this, the GM is looking at the OC like, so what can you do with this young man? What can you do with 6'5", 240, 245, whatever it may be, during the playing weight that runs a 4.6 flat or runs a 4.57? What can you with a 1.54, 1.55, 10-yard split? What can you do with this type of athlete? Oh, simple. I can move them all along my offensive formation. I can create mismatches. I can force corners to have to contemplate, or force defensive coordinators to contemplate putting their corners on him and getting that safety, that nickel, and that linebacker off of him. Then I get a matchup that I want with one of my outside receivers. I could put him outside. I could put them inside. I could do all different things. That's what you will get with a guy like Jake Brenningstool. So definitely keep your eye on big Jake Brenningstool out of Clemson. Of course, Harold Fanning Jr. had a solid week down in Mobile. Day 1, struggled, kind of felt like he was pressing, trying to prove some things. Day 2 and day 3, he was good. He was fine. He got back to looking a little bit more like himself, but there was only 3 days of practice. The 40 time, I think, for Harold Fanning is going to be big, because when you're deemed undersized at 6'4", 6'3" and some change. He's like 238, 235, somewhere in there, like at the Senior Bowl and everything. When you're deemed undersized and they worry about, hey, how we're going to use you as a blocker, you need to run as fast as possible, because then that allows you to be that Jonnu Smith type of guy. Maybe a team bulks you up, and if you get stronger and you're able to block, maybe you can be a Delaney Walker as being that, because this is a former, I think, defensive end, right? He was like a former defensive player in high school and everything, who also played tight end. And he plays like, when the ball's in his hands, he is a running back. He is physical. He is violent. He will run through your face mask. And he's a good route runner. Okay, so great, strong hands as well, and ball skills. Now you add speed to this, quickness to this. Yeah, it's going to help some things out for him, man. So definitely keep an eye on him. Oronde Gadsden the second, I want to see what he runs. Former wide receiver converted to tight end, similar to Darren Waller, who was with the Ravens, I think the Raiders, and then retired as a Giant. But yeah, I look at him and I say, yeah, like, this is a guy that could be that, again, that chess piece, maybe tight end 2. You know what I mean? Maybe not your true tight end 1, because he's got to consistently develop as a blocker, but nonetheless, like this is a guy that can absolutely get it done as a pass catcher and moving all over the formation. Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech. This is a guy. Listen, I think he had the quote of the combine. He wants to block. He said he wants to be physical. He wants to put his helmet underneath someone's chin strap. He's trying to body some folks in the run game. Okay, so listen. AFC North teams, this is a guy you actually want to have on your team because almost all of those teams outside of Cincinnati believe the run game is important. So watch out for him. I'm interested to see what the full athletic profile looks like for him. Then the movement skills as a route runner doing the routes on air. Are you stabbing and jabbing and cutting, or are you more of a round out guy on comebacks and quick hitches? Does it take you an extra step or two? Different things of that nature, right? Another guy, of course, Mason Taylor out of LSU. He's another guy that has a big-time opportunity as a big name in this class that's been rising. I compare him to Mark Andrews with the Baltimore Ravens, man. I think he's got upside as a blocker. You can get him a little bit stronger, thicken out his frame, add more muscle mass to him a little bit. But athletically, straight line, he's good. Good route runner. Guy that knows how to follow the trail and adjust his route based off side adjustments and adjusting based off what he sees against zone coverage, right? That those linebackers are dropping back deep. You cut your route underneath them. If they're taking false steps forward or they're trying to jump, if it's mesh concept and you're the intermediate over or bending route, right? Cool. Those guys jump down to take the shallow cross away. Now you work right behind him. He knows how to do all of those things. All right. He knows how to do all those things. And I think this is just a guy that you absolutely feel good about. A big sleeper for me, man, Luke Lachey out of Iowa. Guys, I'm telling you now, like, I just wish he was at Ohio State. I wish he was I won't say Michigan. I can't say Michigan. Jesus Christ. They can't throw the ball. But 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", 250. Guy can block. He wants to block. You know what I mean? He brings all of that to the table. But he's healthy. I just wish he transferred, man. Good Lord. Transfer. Like, go somewhere else. I feel like he could have been the top tight end at Bama. I feel like he could have been the top tight end in a lot of different places. So, yeah, man, I'm interested. He's a good route runner. He knows that he's not the most explosive athlete, but he knows how to lull you to sleep, right? That Luka Doncic dribble type of route runner where it's slow until it's not. It's slow until it's sudden, and then he breaks and he gets upfield and he's created that separation. But he also has a basketball background from high school where he can go over the top and make plays. So, guys, I'm telling you now, watch out for Luke Lachey as well. I'm interested to see if he works out. Bryson Nesbitt from North Carolina. Nobody's really talking about Bryson, but I remember when Drake May was there. Like, this is a guy 6'5", 230. He was more of a pass catcher in a sense, more of the detached, the slot guy. I think 80% of his snaps, just even this year. I think he might have battled some injuries because he didn't play the full season. But even 80% of his snaps this year were out of the slot, right? In years prior, 81 in 2023, 72.8. So basically 73% in 2022 when he played with Drake May. I definitely think, and that was like up until this year, he's hit for the last 2 years over 500 yards receiving and close to 4 to 5 touchdowns on average. So again, a guy that could be that big power slot type tight end, that F tight end. And it feels like there's a lot of F tight ends in this class, guys that you can classify as that, whether it's a Mason Taylor. I truly think that Tyler Warren, he's a functional blocker. I don't think he's outstanding. I think he could be an F tight end, honestly. Brent Keithy, I don't know if he's healthy or not right now because he got hurt this season, but he's also another guy that you can look at as one of those flex tight ends. You know what I mean? Oh, also, last name here, guys, Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech. Again, another guy that I feel like, could have been much better used at 6'4", 265 than he was when he was, for Texas Tech this year. Spent 3 years at Arizona State, transferred to Texas Tech this past season. The production is not going to be there. The most yards he ever had in the season was 411. That was 2022. But this is a guy, he can play. He can play. And he does some of the similar things that Tyler Warren does that people love so much. The Wildcat quarterback, throwing it and running it. Jalen Conyers does that too. And again, he's listed like 6'3", 6'4", 255 to 65 pounds. Yes, this is a good tight end group. There's a lot of guys I left off this list that I could have gotten into, like Mitchell Evans and CJ Dupree. Like, there's so many guys, man, in this tight end class overall. Shout out to Terrence Ferguson as well over with Oregon, talented football player. Gunnar Helm at Texas. I don't want to name everybody, but I'm trying not to leave some of these bigger name guys, some of these guys that we expect to be day 2 at worst picks off the list. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. It's time for being our everydays. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Hopefully we earned your comment, guys, your written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, 5 stars. Hopefully we earned all of it on today's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.